B2B marketers kind of need to catch up and realize that a lot of their buyers are changing, right? We're seeing more and more millennials in leadership roles. We're even seeing some Gen Zs come into leadership roles, and that those generations are not going to read a 500-page white paper. The old saying, like an image was worth 1,000 words, is really true. And your target audience is going to connect with your brand a lot more if you're kind of incorporating visuals into your content strategy.
Welcome to the Supercharge Marketing Podcast. I'm Pius, the VP of Growth at Lumen 5, an AI video creator made by marketers for marketers. This podcast is a rally call for those who believe in purposeful content, brand storytelling, and thought leadership. We feature insights and best practices from forward-thinking marketers and B2B leaders, daring you to stand out in the rapidly evolving world around us. Are you ready to supercharge your marketing? Hi, everyone. I'm excited for today's episode of Supercharge Marketing. Today, I'm joined by Christina Minshull, a marketing executive with a ton of experience across all of the marketing functions and the founder of the Brand Audit, a brand agency that incorporates art, science, storytelling, and spreadsheets to help tell brand stories. She's also the former global head of marketing and design at Stocksy and prior head of brand, content, and social strategy at EY. She sharpened her experiences in marketing leadership at LinkedIn, Shaw Communications, WestJet, and the Edmonton Oilers Entertainment Group. And she was also part of the global team that launched video ads at LinkedIn and conducted masterclasses on best video practices. Just an amazing range of experiences across B2C and B2B in media and entertainment, retail, services, telecoms, and tech. Is there anything that you can't do? Maybe let's kick off with a little bit of intro about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your journey in marketing and what led you and what drives you here today, Christina.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks so much, Pius, for having me on today to chat marketing on your podcast. And for me, the last kind of decade of my marketing career, I've really been focused on working for brands that want to disrupt the industry and want to do things differently and want to kind of innovate and change. So I'm a natural disruptor, a natural innovator. I like to come into organizations with a growth mindset and really help them tap into the minds of their customers and their clients and really see what is going on there and see what we can do from a marketing lens to both build upper funnel brand awareness all the way down to lower funnel demand generation. And I think that over the course of my marketing career, I've seen the customer journey change and evolve. And so it's about always kind of staying current on what is happening in that digital ecosphere and ensuring that you're kind of tapping into some of those trends and changes within your target audience.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. And I just want to say it's really, really good to see you again virtually this time. A quick story for our audience. I'd reached out to Christina maybe a little while ago just to chat, connect over LinkedIn, thinking she was in Toronto where she lives, but she's actually visiting Vancouver where I am. So we linked up in person and it was just so nice to chat and connect in real life, human to human. And today I'm just really excited to dive into your concept again of kind of business to humans and marketing across both B2C and B2C or B2B with video content and how video drives business forward, tying back that business to humans mindset in marketing and that growth mindset as well. Now, I know that people are people and buy the same way, whether they're B2B or B2C, and specific strategies work well across both segments because of this. I mean, people are people, like you said, and it's not that I'm this corporate robot from 9 to 5 and then magically someone humanistic in my 5 to 9. In your experience, what's generally worked well as a marketing driver across both industries and segments and company types?
Yeah, I definitely like to say B to H, business to human, because I do really feel like at the end of the day, you're selling to that end individual, whether they're buying a B2B product like a cloud computing solution or they're buying a Coca-Cola like a consumer product. Ultimately, there's emotions involved. And I think what works really well when you're talking to people is tapping into those emotions, tapping into those wants, those needs, those fears, even, and really speaking in a human dialogue and speaking one to one with individuals and speaking from a place of understanding and listening. And so I like to tell a lot of my clients, put down the megaphone. Don't be talking about your brand all the time, but really put on the headphones and listen to what your target audience is talking about, what your target audience cares about, and creating content, and especially video content that taps into that dialogue that your target audience is interested in.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess B2C consumer marketing has historically been very video driven. TV
Absolutely.
commercials, for example, is obviously social ads like TikTok recommendations that drive a lot of business to small businesses. But B2B marketing has really historically been seen as that big boring business, right? And business is selling to businesses. But really when you kind of shave it all away, it's just humans talking to humans. And now that shift in mindset to create the types of content that people actually want to watch and consume, and B2B marketers need to find a way to tell their stories in a more compelling and attractive way, like you said. From your experience, how have you seen this differentiate within B2B and B2C, and how should maybe B2B marketers adopt?
Yeah, I think working in both B2B and B2C, I do find B2B a little bit slower to that adoption. And I'm not sure why exactly that is, but video marketing is not new, right? Like it's been on the
Yeah,
scene with
absolutely.
YouTube launching in 2005. They launched video ads, right? And so marketers have had access to use video in their marketing efforts for 15, 16 years. And I think that a lot of companies, especially companies that straddle that B2B and B2C line, they've invested a lot more money into that B2C. And so you've seen that like focus on content production in that B2C lens. But I think B2B marketers kind of need to catch up and realize that a lot of their buyers are changing, right? We're seeing more and more millennials in leadership roles. We're even seeing some Gen Zs come into leadership roles, and that those generations are not going to read a 500-page white paper. They're not going to read long articles. They simply don't have that same attention span as the prior decision makers, and they like to consume content in a different way. So I think B2B marketers need to kind of realize that the landscape of their decision makers and that purchase committee is changing, is evolving, and you need to kind of adapt and pivot to those changes. And we're seeing B2B marketing from a video lens not just be something that's nice to do, but really a mandatory to be successful. And we're seeing a lot of the platforms that B2B marketers operate in really shift their algorithms and their resources towards video first. So I think this is going to be something that B2B marketers need to continue to invest in and continue to think about how their target audience is consuming the video content.
Yeah, that's very true. And last time we really spoke in depth about the marketing led buyer's journey now, where buyers are, I think it's like 85% of the way sold before they even reach out to a company, and that's really driven by marketing and the content that they put out there. And I love what you said about, the buyers generational changes and behaviors changing in how they consume content and what type of content they consume, and really that video led content strategy is key, and whatnot. How can, in your experience working across both B2C and B2B, how have you seen changes in the types of content that people create, and what do you think, marketing leaders like yourself can do to adapt maybe an older organization where they have an older frame of mind and thinking, and get to that new new video-led content strategy?
Yeah, I've seen massive changes over my career in content marketing strategy holistically and specifically video content. I think the biggest change that I've seen is back in the day, there used to be this like big focus on the TV blockbuster, the very polished, the very commercialized video content, and early in my career, we'd spend like millions of dollars doing shoots to do these highly polished video productions, and they take us kind of months from finish to end. And no longer is that kind of the way the world is working. You need to kind of because the industry is moving so fast and because your competitors are moving so fast, it's really essential to kind of adopt the Ryan Reynolds approach to fast advertising and get your content out there while your target audience is active and looking. So I think there's been a pivot from this really polished, really designed, heavily scrutinized type content to more of that digestible, quick, easy content production. And that's why tools like yourselves exist to help people create content in a fast production way that's still on brand and still high quality, but it's able to kind of fill that content void throughout that customer journey.
Oh, I love that. And you recently actually posted about fast advertising and the Ryan Reynolds approach. Maybe you can kind of go into that a little more, kind of taking advantage of the things that are relevant and that are happening right now. What's your take on
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of him. I think that
that?
he's come onto the scene as a non-marketer, right? Like
Hmm.
he's an actor that kind of ventured into marketing, and he's really taking a divergent outsider approach to how he's created content for his brands. And one of the things that he likes to say is marketing doesn't hang in the Smithsonian, right? You're not creating this masterful piece of art. You're creating content that's going to resonate with your target audience and going to prompt them to take some action. And so he's all about looking at the kind of macro dialogue and micro dialogues that are happening right now and assembling a team, assembling content in a really, really quick way, and getting it out there into market while people are still talking about that particular topic. So a good example was the Peloton ad where he saw the Sex and the City uh, episode where Big died on the Peloton and took that and overnight, I think it was like maybe within 48 hours, he had a video ad created and in market. And I think that's the way that marketing is moving, in that the really smart B2B marketers are taking dialogues that are happening right now and inserting their brands into that conversation while it's still relevant. And I think that more and more brands need to empower their marketing teams and empower their social media teams to create timely, relevant content and insert their brands into these dialogues in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I love that. And it's nothing new either. And I think in the past it was really social media and being part of the conversation of things that were happening. But now it's taken really, one step further in like creating content that supports the conversation as well. And to your point, content has historically taken time to create, and it's taken a while, especially video, right? And now with tools like us, tool like Lumen 5, it makes it quick, easy turnaround video content really quickly to conversations that are happening right now. And I think that's a great way to put it. When you look at your experience with imagery as well, and kind of having that diverse media leading to personalization and impactful and relatable content, how do you see that changing with AI and kind of with Stocksy in the company that you were leading before in the marketing realm?
Yeah, I think imagery has, and what we gravitate towards has changed a lot. I think that, like I was saying before, that more like polished corporate professional voice has kind of resonated in the past. And now we're seeing the voice of the more raw and human and imagery that really is authentic and real, really gravitating towards those audiences. And so I think we're going to see this dichotomy of real versus fake in the market. And we're going, as marketers, going to have to kind of balance between AI generated content and real imagery. And I think that there is absolutely a place in the world for both, and thinking about how do we leverage some of these AI tools to help create content in a very streamlined, efficient, and uh, standardized way.
Yeah, that's I was watching this post the other day where I think they were talking about the new Photoshop and how it can just change images through text, obviously, and kind of giving it a natural human language and changing what that image looks like. And it blew my mind. It was like just creating these images that didn't exist before out of text and just changing it around. So absolutely. I think that as we move forward, this real versus fake dichotomy really needs to be looked at. But as if it appeals to certain people and it creates that personalization that I relate to, then there's what's the harm in it. But I think there's a lot of folks that are looking at it from a different lens and kind of looking at some of the risks that are involved with there as well. Do you have any thoughts on where AI could potentially introduce risk to brands in some of the different content that they create?
Yeah, absolutely. With any new technology, there's risks with that new technology. And I think it's all about choosing companies that are really thinking about those ethical impacts. So if you're looking at Adobe Firefly and how they're approaching their their generative AI tool, and how they're thinking about involving creators in that process, and how they're thinking about making sure that there's ethical and trust and safety built in. And I'm on their beta right now and using it for my own business. And it's like you say, it's allowing me to create content in an efficient manner for my small business, and able to create really high quality personalized content that I wouldn't be able to do if I was just choosing stock media. And so I think there's a lot of potential, but it's about using companies that are really thinking thoughtfully around that AI space and are kind of putting those guardrails and those parameters in place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that we've been dealing with at Lumen 5 for a while is creating guardrails around brand consistency and not, letting anybody coming in and create videos that completely blow up the brand because it's off brand. But those guardrails are really important as well. Well, you also speak on this concept of visual velocity in video. What, maybe you can go into this concept a little bit and what that means to marketers.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest content trends is that visual velocity, where as humans consuming content that is more visual in nature, we've kind of changed from a lot of that heavy text on screen towards gravitating towards more educational content that does have those visuals baked in. And we're seeing that with more video content. We're also seeing that with more heavy imagery and demo based content in the B2B space. And we're also seeing that with kind of more interactive content as well. And I think that the more we can kind of engage people from a visual aspect, the more emotional kind of connections we can bring. Um, the the old saying, like an image was worth 1,000 words, is really true. And your target audience is going to connect with your brand a lot more if you're kind of incorporating visuals into your content strategy.
And how do you think this has fundamentally changed how we do business, and how brands embrace these changes, and kind of use them for their advantage to stay relevant?
Yeah, I think from a brand standpoint, you always have to be seeing what your target audience is gravitating towards and how they're pivoting. Your industry is going to be changing, your competitors are going to be changing, and your target audience is going to be continually changing. So it's not about bringing them to the platforms that you operate on, but really looking at what platforms are they on naturally, and how can you go to them rather than try and pull them to you.
Yeah, that's a really good idea as well, and I think that's what makes it so difficult as marketers right now. Is, in the past we were able to see what content resonates with folks and keyword searches and whatnot, but when you take imagery and video, for example, it's a lot more difficult to understand what humans resonate to visually, and what kind of style resonates with them. Do you have any advice on how, as a marketer, we can talk to our customers or audiences and see what appeals to them in a visual context?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say implementing software around social listening is so key to your strategy with video, because social is one of the biggest platforms that you're going to be distributing your video content on. And so you can get a lot of insights into your target audience and what they care about, what their pain points are, what they're watching, and how they're watching it. Especially if you're running ads, you're able to see what those completion rates look like, what target audiences are engaging with different pieces of video content. And when I'm creating video content strategies for my clients, I'm all about experimentation, and I'm all about creating A/B testing strategies so that you can kind of decipher what kind of video content is working best for your audience, because it will be different depending on what your industry is. But what I'm seeing kind of at a macro lens is that a lot of my clients are needing to create video content that really captures that audience's attention within that first 3 to 5 seconds. So that's really important to kind of get that hook and get that person engaged, especially on platforms like Instagram, which play videos without sound to begin with. So the visuals are even more important. Versus TikTok, your video content might be a little bit different because it does have that native sound built in and has that autoplay with sound on. So when you're thinking about different platforms, you kind of have to customize your video content strategy differently. And then there's the layer of your brand and your target audience. So I'm all about creating robust A/B testing frameworks, changing one variable at a time, and really for refining that video content strategy for those customers. And you can only do that if you have software, right? You need to have software that can distribute that content in a meaningful way, analyze that content in a meaningful way, and create that content. So you need software kind of at all three levels: one for the content creation, one for the distribution, and one for the analytics.
That's a really good insight, and I guess that's where the science comes in for your company, and the kind of the work that you do through the brand audit, in helping folks create brand, and helping companies build their brand as well. What do you think the maybe kind of diving into that a little bit? What do you think the biggest or most important factor is when a company or a startup is trying to build their brand and trying to incorporate the science into it while putting art into it as well, and kind of incorporating storytelling and spreadsheets to tell their brand story?
Yeah, I'm definitely a data nerd, and I make pretty much all my decisions in marketing based on data, a
Hmm.
tiny bit based on instinct, but a lot based on data. And what I have seen successful in helping companies kind of start up their content strategy is they need to be really clear on what their measurement strategy is. And I like to call it kind of the war on brand that's happening with a lot of startups, a lot of mid-sized companies, even enterprise companies, where they're over investing in kind of that lower funnel or only measuring their content, including their video content, based on leads or sales. And that's 100% the wrong approach for a measurement strategy. And I like to encourage clients to kind of think throughout that funnel. So when you're distributing video content, you really have to think about where is that video content or where is that content in general at each stage of the funnel. Is it a brand awareness play? Is it a consideration play? Is it a lead generation play? If you're distributing content at different stages, you need to measure differently at each of those stages. And so some of your video content, you'll be measuring based off of impressions and share of voice and brand sentiment. Other pieces, you're going to be measuring based off of social engagement metrics or views. And then others, you're going to be measuring based off of those close won leads, those MQLs, those SQLs. So it's really thinking thoughtfully and strategically about how do you structure your content marketing strategy throughout that funnel, and then how do you measure differently throughout. And then that comes back to making sure that you have the software in place to ensure that you can measure that and you can kind of feed that information back to your head of content or your head of marketing that's making those decisions on what types of content you're creating and what platforms you're creating it for.
Well, that's amazing advice. Yeah, I've worked with a lot of marketers, and I think a lot of times we measure things with one metric right across the board, and like we're just looking at impressions or we're looking at how many leads it drives, but we're not kind of slicing and dicing it in different ways along that customer journey. Where hey, this piece of content really is just created to drive awareness and impressions, okay, but this piece of content is meant to drive sales, and that's where we actually measure the MQLs or the purchase ready leads that they bring in. And I think that's a great way to slice and dice it. And that's yeah, that's amazing advice. How have you done this in the past? Obviously, there's a lot of spreadsheets that go into it, and to your point, and tools and measurement as well. Um, but when you do that, I mean, obviously, I think there's a lot of different ways that you can slice up the content and performance that drives from each content. As a team, how does your team manage this, and how does your team work, and what do you figure out which is important to work on, especially with a smaller team who's kind of forced to do a lot more with less?
Yeah. Regardless of size of company, you're always having limited resources. I've worked at large enterprise companies with 280,000 people worldwide, and I've worked at a small startup with 60 people worldwide. And regardless, you're working within finite resources. So it's thinking about what pieces of content are actually going to drive meaningful results based on your objectives. And to do that, attribution software is a must. You need to understand your client journey and understand what are those points along that client journey that is actually making an impact. And it's really about developing out that lead scoring to begin with and setting that kind of initial benchmark and then refining as you go. So I've worked at several enterprise companies where I've implemented software like Marketo and HubSpot to kind of track that client journey and see how those customers are engaging at different stages of their purchase cycle and develop out that MQL scoring to kind of understand what a good customer looks like and what that definition of good, what they're engaging with. So a lot of the strategies that I've built and then implemented have had to like pivot and evolve and change as you've seen more of that attribution software data. Um, uh, a lot of the times, your initial assumptions about what content your audience is engaging with and at what stage of the journey they're engaging with is incorrect, and you have to use that attribution data to really refine and optimize, and that's the way to kind of move your brand forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you bring a very good point, and your experience shows through, Christina, where it's like you use the software to collect the data, but then you really have to know what you're looking at, and how to slice and dice it, and which bucket to put each cohort into to be able to properly measure and then A/B test against that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all of that starts with knowing your customer well. So
Yeah.
it's getting a ton of qualitative data from focus groups and surveys and doing that user research, and then balancing it with the quantitative big data and looking at that big picture before you start any big strategies, or before you make any big channel pivots, because if you're continually doing different pivots in the marketing space, you're going to be expending resources and budget really quickly. So at the heart of any good marketing strategy is really that data.
Yeah, and it all comes back to talking to the customers and hearing them out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of mind-boggling sometimes on how many brands don't do user research and don't kind of engage their customers in a meaningful way, either from a micro or macro perspective. And the amount of companies that I've implemented user research and social listening and customer surveys has been astronomical, because a lot of these companies have just been doing marketing the way that they thought that their customers were engaging with them. They thought that their customers wanted, and then when you actually get the data, it's very different from what the assumptions were.
Yeah, and this goes back to business to humans, and the human aspect of really doing business, and the human aspect of appealing to customers as well.
Yeah. And
Great.
humans change, humans
Yeah.
evolve, humans pivot. And so I think the important part is not just doing research and looking at data at a specific point in time, but really having that always on approach to measurement, and really having that always on approach to connecting with your target audience, because we've seen a lot of brands really die off because they haven't been listening to their customers, and they haven't been adapting to their wants and needs in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and this is really ties back to what you said earlier about the generational change of buyers, and kind of appealing to different group, and these folks have a different need and they buy differently. The different things appeal to them, and if we don't adapt to this new audience, then like you said, the company's going to die. Well, thank you so much, Christina. This has been amazingly educational and interesting as always. Where can our audience find you?
Well, as a good marketer, you can find me on literally every platform. I'm on TikTok. I have a large group of following there under the handle at the LinkedIn Guru. And you can find me on LinkedIn under my real name, Christina Minshull. You can find me on Instagram at the Brand Audit, Twitter at the Brand Audit. And yeah, look forward to hearing questions and having some conversations with everyone.
Great. Thanks, Christina. And hey, listeners, we always want to keep our episodes short and impactful, and we hope you found value in what you heard today, as that's our goal, really, is to connect you with the industry leaders with expertise to share so we can all grow together. As always, keep making purposeful content in this B2B world, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, hit subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to your podcast, or leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. If video is not already part of your marketing content strategy, it's not too late to start. Create amazing videos with Lumen5's AI-powered video creator without the need for any design or video editing experience. Check us out at lumen5.com to supercharge your marketing, or follow us on LinkedIn for updates and resources. As always, keep making purposeful content in this B2B world. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.